Hi, good afternoon. It's Richard Albans here again, showing you how to put superchargers together on motorbikes. We've been developing a supercharger kit for the Milwaukee 8-engined Harley-Davidsons now for the last 2 years. And this is what we now sell to anybody who wants super duper horsepower. The kit is so powerful that even on a standard engine, we're looking at, with a 114 motor, we're looking at 140 horsepower, 140 foot-pound of torque. If you put something as simple as Zipper's RS468 cam, you're up at 200 horsepower, and then you're looking at things that are going to break. So from there, we've introduced other parts that will help keep the motor together and transmission. So when you're up at 200 horsepower, really the Scream Eagle 114 pistons, the Marley pistons, are really good. Just fitting those in keeps that together, keeps the pistons together. We don't get any problems with those pistons whatsoever. The Scream Eagle head gaskets, they cure any head gasket problems, and at that point you're then looking at keeping the transmission together. We found that the compensator ramps, fracture and fall in 3 pieces, and that makes an awful mess. So we now manufacture these as a high tensile EN36 heat treated part which will not fail. This is the part that we manufacture, and it's not cast like the original factory part. It's out of the best quality steel, and it's pretty well unbreakable. That's one part that breaks before anything else on the transmission. And then, as many of you have already seen, clutch baskets fracture, and that makes an even bigger mess. When we've been testing, we've absolutely destroyed everything down to this damn clutch basket, breaking into pieces, getting trapped underneath the chain, trapped into the alternator. So we've made our own aircraft spec 7075 billet clutch baskets so that we don't have that problem either. So this is what we supply. It comes complete with the bolts and the fasteners so that it doesn't come undone, and these 2 components will ensure that your transmission is pretty trouble free. The kit's pretty unique as far as finding some way of driving this supercharger. We came up with a solution where nobody else has thought about this. We couldn't drive off the end of the crank because the supercharger would be rotating the wrong direction. We couldn't drive off the other side because that side of the crank is too weak, and it's driving the oil pump, it's driving the camshaft. It's not the right place to be. So what we did in the end, we introduced a Sabaki super strong primary chain, and this is 6 links longer than the stock chain, and this enables us to drop a drive just there. This comes out through our own CNC billet primary case to a pulley that sits on this side. So you'll see in a minute what this looks like. We had a couple of troubles in working out how to do this, because you've got a chain tensioner here. This chain tensioner you cannot set until your outer cover is in place. So we hold it down with a zip tie, we poke it through the cover, and then when everything is bolted up, we cut the zip tie, and the tensioner takes up the load that it should do. And it was a simple solution in the end, but it took a little bit of thinking about. The supercharger oil is built into a tank within the case. So we've got a back plate here that holds the reservoir together so there's no oil leaks, and the oil is filled through the top, and the in and out to the supercharger are there and there. So we don't have to find anywhere else for an ugly tank on the bike, so it keeps it sweet looking. When we're fitting this case, we put the bolt that holds the pulley into the shaft, and this makes life easy. Put the zip tie through the threaded hole. We use the bolt that holds the pulley in place in the end of the shaft to aid us guidance, and then we can slide everything together, just like that. We can then cut the zip tie, pull this through, put the pulley on the outside. Obviously there's a gasket goes here, and put all the bolts in, and that's the next stage complete. Okay, so the case is on, everything looks sweet. The next thing is the drive pulley. So the drive pulley's got a positive drive, and obviously the same on the shaft. So we have to locate those. So put the 14mm threaded bolt through there, Loctite it, and then locate the dogs. Then we tighten it up, simple as that. Okay, so now we've got the supercharger drive pulley fully torqued up onto the end of the drive spigot, and the next thing to do is put the supercharger on. We bolt this to the bracket, make life easy for ourselves. See, the air intake pipe is all built in, and we slide the two together. Just like that. Now we have 6 bolt holes to bolt the bracket to the main case. We've got a tensioner pulley goes there, an idler pulley goes here, and the belt running as that, which you'll see in a moment. Okay, so we've got the supercharger mounting bracket on with the 6 screws all Loctited in place. The belt we use is a Gates GTX 30mm wide. It's a really tough belt. It does a hard job with the Harley's firing impulses, so we've had to go to a very, very strong belt to make sure everything stays together and is reliable. And that just needs the tensioner pulley to tension it, idler pulley to get the wrap and take up the backlash in the chain. So we just make an adjustment. Okay, so we tighten it up. I use a pair of circlip pliers to rotate the tensioning pulley in the right direction. Then we just nip it up. Belt not over tight, but does the job. Okay, so we've got the belt guard on. To get the clearance for the supercharger, we have to space out the foot peg hanger about 2 inches, and we supply the spacers, the bolts, and a new gear change lever, which gives us a clearance. Again, a lot of people think with the foot peg here, it's a much more comfortable bike to ride than it was when they were further in. They're not so cramped up on the bike, which is good news. Ground clearance is reduced fractionally, but not by a lot. Okay, so this is the intercooler, which we're really pleased with the look of. The intercooler tanks are finned just like the rest of the intercooler, so it doesn't look like a cheap Chinese piece of crap that you see on eBay. It's very, very efficient and keeps the air temperatures really low, so we get maximum horsepower. To mount the intercooler is very simple. Obviously, you've got to slide the outlet of the supercharger into the silicon to join the intake pipe, and we have a similar thing to do on the other side to join the plenum chamber, which we'll get to in a moment. This is an intercooler in the raw. The intercooler hangs off the top front engine mount, cylinder head mount. We have substantial rubber grommets to take the shock loads and the vibration out of the intercooler to keep things together. Steel top hats that go inside, and bolts to suit. So it's a very simple job to install. Okay, so this is the back of the plenum chamber. 2mm O-ring all the way around. 2mm O-ring around a vacuum takeoff, which operates the built-in blow-off valve. This is the blow-off valve. So instead of having an independent blow-off valve hanging off the side of the bike, we've built it into the plenum chamber so you don't see it, and you also hear a lot less hiss from it because of its position and the fact that it blows the air out down past the 2 cylinders. So this just gets operated via the vacuum pipe from a small pipe that runs from the engine side of the throttle body down to the back of the plenum chamber back, and then this all sits on there quite nicely, like so. Silicon hose fits, 5 screws, very simple to assemble and very neat. Blow-off valve does its job without anybody seeing it. Okay, so we've covered fitting the plenum chamber, the intercooler, main case, supercharger. Supercharger needs an oil supply. Okay, so this is the oil tank. The oil tank outlet is here. So the oil feeds through a filter and then along the bottom and round and up into the intake of the supercharger. The oil pump of the supercharger draws the oil in, feeds the supercharger. It also pushes the oil out, goes out and down, and we have a small oil cooler here which we feed along and out, and then this feeds along the top and back to the oil tank. The full supercharger oil circuit instructions are with the Rotrex Supercharger handbook. That comes with every kit. The kit also comes with good installation instructions. The only other thing we have to discuss is injectors. It's a 5-minute job, change the injectors. There's 2 injectors in there, and we pretty well double the size to some 630 injectors. And then engine management wise, you have several options. You have Screaming Eagle Pro Tuner, you have Power Commander 5 with fuel and ignition adjustment. So you need the ignition because you need to retard the ignition. Power Vision is a good tool also. So once you've got the kit installed, your preferred tuner can set this up very, very simply. We like to tune not against manifold pressure, but against throttle angle. The supercharger produces progressive boost from idle to redline. So unlike a turbo where you've got a piece of elastic where depending on load you've got different boost, with the supercharger you've always got the same boost per RPM and throttle angle. And the only thing that will change is obviously if you go to the top of a mountain, the air's less dense, so it will run rich. But apart from that, it's a very simple way to set up the engine management. The Thundermax tuner is a more comprehensive tuner that works very well, but is pretty arduous to use, and you need to find someone who knows the Thundermax inside out to do a good job. The power from this, like I say, with this supercharger, just a cam will give you 200 horsepower. If we change this supercharger for the C3094, this is C3074, and with our race kit we put a different intercooler in and a bigger plenum chamber. Just with that increase in boost and running a 64mm throttle body, we can be way over 300 horsepower. So proper drag racing territory where you can put down some really tremendous times. But the kit as it is fantastic for the road. The power is linear, there is no throttle delay, instant throttle response, not like a turbo, and very linear power delivery, so it's not going to scare you coming out of a bend and winding the throttle on. It's not going to hit a boost spike and just throw you down the road. It's a very, very easy bike to ride, and you'll enjoy it more than you'd ever know.